We'll go ahead and call this part 3 on the oil pressure issue, even though I think it's just this simple oil control valve. Check back if you don't know what I'm talking about. This time, we're just going to be putting it back together. I'm going to try to make this quick. A few of you said that you'd like to see the oil pan come off. I'll do that in the future. I'm not going to do more than I need to. And if there is, depending on what's in the oil pan, if there isn't anything in the oil pan, for instance, like this camshaft follower, if this is an older 2-liter, the plunger that rides on this follower on the intake cam, if something like that were to come all the way apart or something big enough to clog up the oil pickup tube, then that would be a concern. In this case, I think it was just a safety clip that's very small. Long story short, just yeah, it's a good idea a lot of times to check the pickup tube, but I don't think in this case the pickup tube is clogged, and I don't think in this case it's anything to do with the balance shafts. Even though that seemed like an insignificant thing to me missing, that little clip, I do believe that that's the first time I've seen that, so that would indicate to me that that's abnormal enough to where that could cause the intermittent issue, because intermittent is also a weird issue with oil pressure, because typically you're going to be consistent with it. If there's an actual issue, it's going to come up at a certain operating temperature every time. When it's this intermittent, this is a different intermittent. This is an intermittent to where sometimes you drive it and it's fine, and randomly it comes on. We're talking about the oil pressure light. So we're not going to get too in depth with all that. I'm going to proceed with replacing the water pump since I'm this far out. And this is a cheaper water pump. I showed in a different video the Chinese versus the name brand, like from Germany parts. So this is a knockoff, but I feel better about this aluminum. I did replace this sensor with the OEM one. And if you take that clip off with your bare hands, if you squeeze those, you're going to break that clip. You have to take this off piece by piece, side by side, with a pick. And if you can't figure out how to do that, then sorry, I'm not going to show you. But I did break my first one just because, I got others laying around, so now I can tell you. I just squeezed it like this to try to get it loose. Snap. You have to take, did I say I wasn't going to show you? Now I'm lying. You have to take the pick and go side by side. First you do one full side and get it all the way off, and then you go over to the other side, and then you get the other full side off with the pick. That's how you get it without breaking it. All right, so we also got to be really careful with this union down here when we take it off, but let's just get this thing apart. No, it's not necessary to take the intake manifold off to do the water pump. It's just a lot easier when it is off. I did a valve cleaning, and I can barely even get this bit up down there behind that. Look at that, me struggling. Then we're gonna drop it if we're not careful. Oh, there we go, dropping it. That's okay. It's okay if you just say it's okay. All right, this one we can get easily. And then pull this to the side, go into your heater hose. Lost a little dribbles. There's only so much you're gonna be able to do with pulling it to the side. Let's unclip this up here. All right, that's fine. Let's see if we can do this right here. Can we do this? Look at that. That's money right there. Just a little lip behind the AC line action. Now we can get this knock sensor wire out of the way over here. Tuck action. Now let's get these bulky boys off. And we're just gonna give it a little luckily it snapped itself back in rather than snapped itself off. And then this back one we're going to do the same thing, just a little love wiggle and pull. Pull it into its service position. You can take them all the way out if you'd like. See, that one popped off, but it's right here. we go. Now I'm gonna pull it up here and slide it back into place. Come on now, look at that. Did you hear it? Ting, 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 ting. You gotta listen until you hear it hit all the way to the ground. And then what would you do if you were like, oh, I can't find it, let's just move on. And then you forget about it, and then you put it back together, and then you can't remember, you think it clips back in. I hope you don't do that kind of stuff. But I heard it hit the ground, I don't see it. We are looking for it right now, and I don't feel like grabbing a flashlight. Would you look at that? It was right there. It fell basically right into my feetsies. And it's as easy as this, really. I mean, it's just, come on now. Come on now. There we go. Now, do we need to move this boy right here? What is that? After run coolant pump. Let's take this off first. And one down front right here. See it? Let's go ahead and zip all these bolts out. We got the two that straddle the coolant temp sensor, and then the remaining three. Bolt retrieval. And water pump removal. Why is it being so stubborn? Why isn't it just coming right off easily? Well, there's a couple dowel pins. One of the dowel pins is right here, and the other one's already released. But it's been seated for a long time, and with it being so free right here, look, let me go ahead and just slide this belt off. You see how easy that was? Now I have a bigger range of motion. But I went ahead and freed everything up first. Now, these unions, it's a good idea to replace these unions. I'm going to inspect this one and take a good close look at it. We're going to clean it up and look at it. Now, if you'll notice, the one on the left here, let me zoom, is the one that came out of this car. And what I've personally noticed is these black ones tend to last, and these lighter color ones are pretty sketchy. I don't know if I feel like, you can just tell that this black one's holding up a lot better, and the material of this lighter color one is just starting to deteriorate. Now, I think it's fine. You know, I think it'll last another 10 or 15 years, but sometimes they don't. You know, some people get mad at me for saying that, just because they have been known to fall apart. But It's from case to case basis. I mean, I think it really has to overheat for one to fall apart, but I will show you that, you know, if you take, see that? See how I could just take some of the material and scratch it off? I just don't think that that's going to happen with this black one, and this black one is used. But if I try to, I mean, I might have been able to do the same thing, but you can just tell the type of the material falls apart a lot easier. That's that scratch I made. But so I'm going to go ahead and they do make aluminum ones, and they only cost like $6 a piece to buy aluminum unions. And I've got one. Let me just go ahead and show you. See it? Do I feel like opening the bag for you? No, I don't. See it? Pretty. And here's some turbo clips. Yes, we're going to save this and probably use it on something else, but for now, we got a black one, so we're going to put the black one on this car. And I'm going to put the stuff together with some tire shine, because so far it's been working for me. I don't know how it's going to hold up after 10 years, but so far that's what I prefer to put all my rubber pieces together with, is tire shine. If you'll take a close look at this one, you'll notice that it was already on its way out. Now, could that have happened whenever I was jiggling it loose? See the crack in that ear? Yes, that could have happened whenever I was jiggling it loose. Now, let's take a closer look, because I got to zoom in on this. Do you see how that crack has continued right there? Where they typically crack is the plastic rim on the inside, right here, or the plastic rim all the way around the sides. So, you know, I've got examples to show you if you want. I'll make a video of like the half dozen I have laying around. Most of them I've thrown away. So I'm going to take my tire shine and just give it a nice little spray. That will be sufficient. And take a look here. It's still all loose, and with it all loose, I have enough slack to take the belt and slide it right on. And then I simply wiggle it and align these studs, this one right here and this one right here. There you go. See, you want to make sure that it's all the way seated first. It's all the way seated, now we can toss the bolts in. Went down this hole. There it is. Now, what I think was actually holding that bolt up right here was this bulky piece of plastic. I would typically suggest everyone else do this by hand. I know some people are gonna be like, what a hack. Look at them running that in with the electric tool. Look at it, it's probably cross-threaded. Well, if that was aluminum, I would not have ran that in. I had confidence, because I've done this a few times before, that I'm screwing it into a cast iron block, and I knew I wasn't stripping it out or cross-threading it. Yeah, you don't want to take chances like that, because if you cross-threaded your bolt, especially on your water pump, that's a very, very, very important spot to not have stripped out. You do not want a coolant leak. That's a huge, huge headache. Take it back off, helicoil it out, possibly, you know, drill, all that kind of, you don't want to mess with that kind of stuff. But that's just an example of how a bolt can go in crooked when you're using your power tools and just zipping things away. Like, you know, you just ring, 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 we're making time because we're just zipping things away. Just There's no regard for torque specs or stripped fasteners. That's what it is, but you know, you gotta not strip stuff out. So it's this one right here. We'll start these two. So we'll just zip this cover back into place. We can get the tool back in there. Much easier without the intake manifold in the way, as you can see. Now we'll go ahead and tire shine this one up and go ahead and pop it back into place. Get this hose on the right side. We don't want to get that routed in properly. Pop it back in. Now let's go ahead and get our bolts started back in there. Now don't forget your bolt in the bottom of your coolant pipe. Let's see if I can somehow manage to get this thing in there. Somehow did. You didn't see though. I just looped the needle, looped the thread through the needle on that one. Okay. Let's get these coolant hoses back on, and then let's start putting this intake manifold on. Let's get our bottom hose on first. What a mess down in there. We just got to roll it around until we feel its slots. You hear it, and then you pull back on it. And then let's get this upper hose, pop it into place. You hear it, and then you pull back on it. Now, let's just start working on getting this thing together. I'd like to get this on first. Let's put our oil control valve in and get this cover on. Remember, this one's reverse thread. You want to make sure that you put the right one back in, because the different cars use different ones. Like for instance, the newer style engine uses a slightly different one. Chances are you don't have a bunch of parts laying around like I do though. Now don't just toss it in. Always go back and tighten it. That means you want to have the correct tool in your hand to go back and tighten it right after you toss it in. So I got the tool right here. What I really prefer to do is get it started with my right angle pick. You could use a small one like this, or you can use the larger one that's for some reason not exactly handy at the moment. So we'll get back to my smaller pick here and see if it, so remember, see the pick in that hole? We're going reverse thread, so that would mean this way. And what I'm actually doing here is it's tightening that oil control valve, because I'm just rolling this. Can I get a better, I'm trying to get a better view for you. So just kind of stick it in there and roll it around until it catches, and then you just get it snug. Now let's toss the cover on. But you always want to make sure that you have a new gasket on the cover, because these are prone to leaking. What will happen is a film of oil will just roll back on top of this cam tray and put a nice shimmer of oil all the way back in. A lot of people don't know what it is, but it's this rubber cover gasket. Remember if I mentioned before, but I'm not taking the oil pump off, or oil pan off. I already mentioned that. What I typically would have done is taken this cam bridge off, but less than 10,000 miles ago, I actually did have this all the way apart, and I believe every single screen I always pop out of these things, and I should have had that popped out. Now this the ball can pop all the way out, and this bridge right here can be damaged altogether, and that's still possible. But I'm gonna go ahead and, since this part right here doesn't take much to take back off, I'm gonna go ahead and just put it back together. And if I need to take it back off, I will, and then you'll get a video on that. But if I don't, I won't. So I'm just going to proceed with putting it back together. So that means I'm just going to take this case right here that already has a new gasket on it, and as I put it in a clean spot, we're going to just toss it back on. And then I don't know if I'll show you me bolting it down or not. I mean, how much do you really want to see? Let's get this fuel rail on here now. I took this off without removing these injector O-rings on this side, and that's the way you want to do it if you can. Now this makes no difference whatsoever, but I'm just gonna put a little bit of tire shine on the end of those. And maybe it does make a little bit of difference because these Teflon pieces right here, I mean, technically you're probably supposed to replace them, but I've never replaced them. I've only seen one of those shoot out and go bad as well. Like the plastic deteriorate and cause what it actually did was compression leaked past it. So it sounded like sounded like an old, I don't know, old worn out Chevy truck or something with a blown through exhaust on the header or something like that. So that's all the way pushed into place. Now we're going to go ahead and zip it into place. Like I say, use your hand tools. Don't use your power tools like I'm using. Do as I say, don't do as I do. And we're just going to leave that here for now, except this right here is your coolant temp sensor, so I'm going to go ahead and plug that in. Looks like it goes the other way there. And so the fuel rail's on. Let's put our next part on, our mid runners, our flap module. Now we got this intake runner assembly. Are we forgetting anything? Yeah, we got these little intake inserts. Now they do have see, I didn't even really need to do an intake cleaning on this one. I just did it for YouTube, just because I was taking the intake manifold off for YouTube. So purists would go ahead and take a razor blade and scrape these clean, but they're not really, they have an even nice shimmer of buildup on them, so I'm just going to toss them in the way they were. Who knows, maybe it helps pick up future carbon whenever they already have a start to it. But yeah, I already said what I said, so if you get mad about it, you can tell me in the comments. So we're just gonna make sure that they're pointing the right direction. And like I said, you lose, the reason why these are in here is for low end torque. So it divides the valve chamber in half. And now see, I'm trying to put them in upside down. I know which way they go now. I should know off the top of my head, like I just don't pay attention to everything. So now that I'm paying attention to it, I know that the skinny side up top. So now I'll pay attention to how the flap goes, because like I say, this that's why you got that flap, because it minimizes the space to increase the flow, and it makes it interesting to think about the aftermarket intake, where it eliminates this runner assembly. So I don't know if they might lose some low-end torque doing that. But I know on the 3-liter supercharged engine, if you just try to go sliding this on without opening up this with a vacuum, that you'll get a fault for your intake flaps. Now, if we remember, this fuel knurl right there is what was holding us up. So we just kind of had to bend this thing and kind of tap it over that fuel fitting. I bet you if I turned it tight just a little bit more, it would be on a flat spot and it wouldn't be obstructed. I'm gonna go ahead and try that. See how the tip right here is all the way on top? So what I'm gonna do is probably over torque it a little bit. This probably isn't a smart idea anyway, but you know, I do what I want to do. Like I said, do as I say, don't do as I do. Definitely don't want to strip anything out. but just tightened it a little bit more, and now the top is just a little bit more flat. And now maybe it goes on just a little bit more easy. I was able to get it off anyway. So we're just gonna mind you, it would go on probably very easy with both hands. Let's see here. Yeah, I gotta tap it on with both hands. I just can't show you. Maybe I can. See how easy that is? I didn't need to go turning that. That was a bad move. I did that because I was trying to do it with one hand, but all I needed to do was kind of manipulate that stud a little bit to push it over that fitting. Now, on this particular engine, we don't need to pull a vacuum on the intake runners. Some people out there know what I'm talking about. Let's move on. Now right here we have our position sensor for our changeover flaps. Before we bolt it in, we need to make sure just to toss that in and make sure it's all the way clipped in, and then push it back into place. Now we can proceed. But there's some quick housekeeping to take care of. Right here. And there's another one right here. Let's flip it around. Come on now. And there's this one right here. Let's proceed. Check out that cold start injector for the ethanol. Pretty interesting. Are we forgetting anything? Well, before we toss that on, we want to go ahead and pop this in. This electrical connector for the old changeovers. Get it plugged in right here. And then what else we got back here? Let's go ahead and get these handy. And now we can go ahead and toss this manifold back on. I will be replacing that breather assembly. Let's see if the bottom went in. We've got a bolt here. Come on now. Just pull these bottom two out. All right, there's that one. And there we go. Nice. Nice. Now, let's just tidy up a few things. Go ahead and bolt it in. Yeah, we'll go ahead and bolt it in. We'll, where's our knock sensor wire? We'll trace it down. Here we go. Toss it over behind here. Put these in the loom here. Oftentimes, the little extra trigger to put this in correctly breaks off, so you just toss that one in sideways. You need to make sure that they're all clipped in properly, though. Well, let's go ahead and plug them in, too. Won't hurt. So here it clip, and then you pull back. This one's for the purge valve. What else do we have? what is all of this? All right. We have our cold start injector. See, this one right here is supposed to clip right there for the wiring harness. Then this cold start injector can clip down in here. There's a couple more things let's cover real quick. Let's go ahead and plug in our, what is this? Camshaft position sensor. There's a little tone ring on the intake camshaft to tell the ECU where the engine's at for fuel injector firing. And let's go ahead and push these back in. Also for ignition timing. Let's go ahead and plug this. Okay, we already got that one plugged in. Remember, I got a safety tab. Remember, all of our electrical connectors, all of our hose connectors, everything that we secure, we always check right immediately after plugging in. We should have a connector right here. Remember this hose right here for our high pressure fuel pump. On this flex fuel type engine, we have the connections on both the pump itself and down here we have another fitting on the fuel rail that we have to loosen. So you see it right here? So we're gonna go ahead and just tighten that by hand, by finger tight, and maybe we'll go ahead and just start that bolt right here. Let me grab that. Just toss that in to get it started. See how that clamps all the way in the way? Can't do that on there. Gotta do it by hand. Now that I got it started by hand, now I can go ahead and sneak in there sideways. But I'm gonna keep it a little bit loose. Let's go ahead and tighten it down now, like I said before. Get one of these long drivers here. Let's get it in from the bottom here first. We'll just go ahead and zip it in right there, and then the middle, and then the bottom. Let's see where we at. All right, and then back to the middle, sides. Come on now. Gotta be careful with these things. Let's do the trick.
Paper towel, whatever, piece of paper, could be anything. And then push the nut down into place. Then you can fish it down in anywhere you're going. Right. Let's get this back on. Let's keep that there for now. got a magnetic attraction to it, this thing. Makes it difficult to retrieve all the bolts responsibly. It's nice and clean.
Wish I had a new one, but these things are expensive. And this is OEM, and if you look at the date there, see the arrow, and then let me see if I can zoom. It says 19 in the middle of the arrow, and it's pointing to 3. I don't know if I'm getting a good zoom or not. Doesn't look like it's trying to. So that's 2019, the 3rd month. That's how they do the dating there. So pretty stinking new, and it's been sitting around, so I bet you this thing only has a few miles on it. So we're gonna go ahead and load this bad boy up here and tighten it down. But what? Remember, I don't like that that's magnetic. Remember what we're forgetting? Now we can proceed. The oil filter can go ahead and go back on. We had a paper towel over it this whole time to make sure that nothing got in there. And we succeeded. And get it this tight. Then we go ahead and toss our coils in. When we toss them in, let's go ahead and firmly push them in with our palm and make sure they're firmly seated. Next. Now with the vacuum pump, remember we have, a bolt that just fell out. Remember, we have, you know what we have. That was even worse. Brand spanking new, what is it? Vacuum pump gasket. Remember to make sure that this screen right here is all clear. Check out this right here, because you're gonna wanna line it up with your camshaft, and I can feel that it's like this. So it's pretty much lined up. Now I like to keep the bolts in place. I don't like to put the vacuum pump gasket here. I like to put it on the back of the cylinder head. So I'm gonna cut it open and just lay it on. You don't need to put anything on it. You just make sure that it's positioned correctly. And then on the Q5, you got plenty of room. You can just slide your pump into place. And with any luck, the bolts won't fall out. Come on now. really that far off? Oh man, I finally got it there at the end, but that was a struggle. I started that bottom bolt right there. Oh, I thought I did. Let me start this top one. What a struggle. There we go. Come on, let's get started. Time for some power tools. I think we're there. Silly tool. Gotta take the battery out of it for 5 seconds, put it back in, and then it works again. It does that occasionally. All right, that's torqued to my liking. We're gonna make sure that camshaft follower is fully seated. Now we're ready to, we can go ahead and put this evap hose on. Now we're ready to go ahead and throw our fuel pump in. We need to make sure that when we just roll our wiring harness back over, that we firmly clip all these all the way flush, the coil packs or individual coils on this particular car. And we tighten down our bolt, and then we can go ahead and slide in our exhaust cam solenoids. I like to have this wire on this side. Just go ahead and pop all these in. Like to have this on this side here. Let's take our, what is this? Primary oxygen sensor. Pop it in its spot right here. Clip it back like so. And then like so. Let's take this hose clamp here and go ahead and snug it back in. Right? And then we can take our high pressure hose fitting. We need to, sometimes this can be tough. You hear it, and then you pull back. And then we're about ready for this guy right here. What is it? It's our high pressure fuel pump. Then we can just slide it over in here, slide it into place, and then it's spring loaded, so we're gonna have to tighten it back and forth evenly. I'm gonna go ahead and start with the top one just because it's easy and visible. We'll slide this one here, you see that? And then not too much, we'll stop right there. And then we'll load up our bottom one. And then this one's gonna be a little bit trickier. We gotta stick our face way down in there. And I don't know if, once I get it started, I'll have the camera look, or maybe I can get the camera in there. tight visual. But anyway, I'm gonna move back to the top, move back to the bottom. Move back to the top, move back to the bottom, all the way tight on the bottom, all the way tight on the top. That's how you tighten the high pressure fuel pump. Now let's put the hose on it and get that hose nice and clamped up, right like so. Now let's go ahead and just plug it in right like so. And I like to take this wire right here. You see how there's a pocket? Just right like that. Remember what this is for? Our rear oxygen sensor. Typically there's a little clamp for it, a little plastic clip. I'm just going to wrap it around this harness once and plug it back into itself. It might not look like the prettiest thing, but that clip is either broken or missing. And there's one more clip I told you that I would fix that I broke. See, that's not a big deal. That's fine. And that's right here. I'm just gonna zip tie that right there. Threw a zip tie through the hole, kept that tight, and then you don't want to forget, like I said, some people would lambaste me for this, but get a good zip tie and this will be a permanent fixture right there. That's not going anywhere. Always want to give it a nice pull, tug, make sure you can't pull it off. And then make sure it's seated after you pull it. You don't want to. All right, what's next? Well, we got some stuff over here we can do. We still need to throw the throttle body on. We got this coolant hose we need to put back up. We got the magnetic adjuster we still need to put in. Let's go ahead and do that. This is the newer style, the plastic one. The older style is very fragile. The connector can break off very easily. I'm assuming that's why they redesigned it into this plastic style. And now we just gotta line it up so we can toss our bolts in a little bit. You just spin it around a little bit until you can feel it screw into place. And then you just start your screws, just like you saw me drop more bolts. This one here, you see how it's a little bit more difficult with this cup inside here? By the time you get it in there, it's almost flush, so you just got to come back up with the old ratchet where I got it. But on the Q5, we got enough room to stick a tool in there. You see, as such, very. And then we got this guy down here. Can we get to it? Gotta flip the tool around and come in on this trajectory right here. Or can we? Now we got one more. This one would have been easier to get to without the oil filter on, but we can still do it. And then let's find a bolt for this one right here. Wire's in the way. Come on, wire. be. Where are those oil pressure wires? There they are. Alternator clip. It's very common for this one right here to break. That clip connects to that very hot coolant hose, and I don't know why they thought that that thing would last. We're pretty close to the throttle body, but we got some loose ends we can tie up over here. We have a vacuum hose that pops in where? On top of this solenoid right here. See that? And then we can push this into place. That's for our evap purge. And cinch this clamp back up. Come on now. All right. Some wiring that I took apart that I didn't really need to take apart. This one here just clips right in. You make sure to push this in if it has a safety clip after you're done. And then there's a plastic clip to put it on that coolant hose, and then we'll just route the rest of these wires down here, and we'll lift the car and get to those from the bottom. And should we put the throttle body on now? Let's go ahead and do that. Remember now, Junior, before we can put this throttle body on, we did not tighten down our fuel lines. Now on this side is the side that we always tighten down, but on this new aluminum flex fuel design, we've got to have another nut down here tightened. So let's go ahead and see if we can get a view. See that there? Let's roll our nut into place. Can we get a better view? Well, we can't really get, my arm is in the way, you see, Junior. But now that my arm is not in the way, you can see the nut is installed. And what do we have down here? Is the nut installed down here? Where is it? It's right there. It is installed. So we're gonna get down here. I'm gonna try to zoom it. Now, do you see where the fuel lines go? So both of them are hand tight. Let's get another view. Do you see it, Junior? Do you see it? There it is. Now let's go back and tighten both of those with a 17mm wrench. First, we're gonna come back here on this one. And you see we just come all the way back here like so. And we flip the wrench around if we can't get it on the first try. I'm gonna have to look with my own bare eyes. You see? Well, if that just isn't difficult to get to, but since you tightened it down almost all the way tight, all you have to do is get it about another quarter turn. And then when you're done, go ahead and make sure everything's tidied up. And we're gonna do the same thing down here. Do we have enough room? Okay, flip the wrench around. And one more time for good measure. Come on now. Can we get a bite? We're fishing for a bite. Come on now. That's all the way on that side. We get just one more, there we go. All right, that's all I wanted. That's perfectly tight now, both sides. Time for the throttle body. Is this metal intake gasket for the throttle body? Yes. Will it be okay to reuse? Yes, it's always been okay to reuse. So you just start, I prefer to start at least 2 of the bolts. Then you can, you want to go the right direction, but you want to see that, because that's no fun. Then you have to retrieve your bolts. Oh, and then it drops in a different place. To be continued. Right back at ya. Now we're gonna take this bolt and punish it by reinstalling it for running away like a sad unleashed puppy dog that's disciplined with their owners, trying to find a new life. Not all the way, not all the way, just snuggy. Same there, not all the way, just snuggy. Now we take the bottom 2 and we start them and we get them going. Start it by your hand. And then we're gonna need an extension for these bottom 2 because they're tucked up in there, you see. So what we do is, well, we get an extension. Let's see if this might be long enough. First can you get... Nice. Nice. Where is it? Nice. And then the bottom one, can we get it? Nice. Now, plug in that throttle body. Remember, hear it clip and then pull it back. Now we can go ahead and take this intake hose right here and just toss it back on. And don't forget to tighten it back down. Place I would always suggest using a hand tool, because if you strip one of these are easy to strip out. If you strip out one of these worm clamps, then you can blow an intake hose off, and it can kind of pretty much make you stranded in certain circumstances. It's pretty difficult to get the engine going sometimes whenever that blows off. And now let's go ahead and try this one right here. Pop it into place. Sometimes these stick. Pull it back, give it a nice firm test. We got to put the coolant back in it, but we still got stuff on the bottom and we got to put the air box in. So let's go ahead and lift it up and put the bottom wires on. All right, I prefer just to go way up here and start by clipping, you see that? Clipping this hose on. And then the 2 connectors here up the turbo. Here, and then pull it. And then we got the other one right here, which is the recirc valve. And then the clip right here, oil level sender right here with the safety clip, and our electronic motor mount. And after that, come on now. After that, we're going to put the air box on, give it a test start and see what happens. And then clean it up and wash it, and wash the splash pan, and then keep an eye on it. Now we can use the tire shine again right here for this air box. We can simply dap it up right here and right there. And then look at how smooth it just wants to slide right into place after that. After you get the intake hose out of the way, that is. And you definitely want to make sure that you align it properly. So I like to put my hand down here and feel where the holes go. Sometimes I can't find the holes. Come on now. There we go. And then you, come on now. You know, everything really is easier with both hands. One of these days I will get me a Google Glasses or something. Tighten it down right here. And then what's left? Our ram air scoop right here. And we just, what we do with this is we install it in the air box first, and then we install it in the bottom two, and then we install it in the top two. And you see how just easy that is? All right, is everything tidied? Everything's tidied. We just need to put coolant in it and clean it all up and put the engine cover back on it. Let's go ahead and just do a quick little wipe down of this tire shine and toss that engine cover back on the top. And of course I put it together and it's leaking at the union. You see it dripping right there? Just my luck. Well, I got it all loose already, so let's go ahead and take it off and take a stinking look at it. Did I break it? Look at that. Chopped up an O-ring just by installing it. Easily chopped it up. Big old gash. Looks like the other one's got to go in. And by the other one, I mean the crusty one. Just kidding, I put the aluminum union in there. Or did I? So before I buttoned it up, I cleaned up the splash pan and I cleaned up the whole entire engine. Look at how nice and shiny it is. That way we got a blank slate to work from in the future. Whenever we're taking a look at it, no one can say, hey, look at how messy it looks. And so we can see if it actually has a valid oil leak or if there was just some spillage in the past or what's going on with it. But I'm assuming it will stay nice. Nice and clean. I'll give an update on this Q5 in a future video. If it's still broke, folks, you'll find out. I'll tell you. But so far, so good. We'll see what happens.